So another thing to think about, does your policy allow the investigator to give an opinion? Does the investigator make a recommendation to the deciding official? Or does the investigator just present the factual findings report and that's it? Does the deciding official get to talk to the investigator, get to ask questions of the investigator? Do you include the investigator in the live hearing? Those nuances and rules are being worked out, but sometimes, some places they allow they want to know what the investigator thinks, and others they say, no, just the facts, just tell me your conclusion. Even in law enforcement, there are agencies where the detective or the investigator is allowed to come to a conclusion and actually put it in writing. In my agency, we weren't. We just provided the factual findings, the investigatory report, and it was up to the command and the prosecutors to interpret that. For the decision maker, when you write your report, when you write your conclusion, you need to articulate how you've interpreted the evidence and why. So you've interpreted the evidence to mean that Brown then ran into the bathroom. Why? Because the witness testimony, the surveillance footage, the phone call, all of that supports the assertion that that's what she did. So that is my conclusion. That has to be clearly available to the people reading the report. They need to understand how you got to where you got. So back to that example with the "I'm sorry" text message. If you think that was an admission of guilt, you have to explain why. The respondent is arguing it wasn't. So explain your decisions. Explain that it was based on witness statements, the totality of the text conversation, their previous interactions between the two of them, his actions or her actions before and after the event, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever it is, be specific on why you are deciding that way. It's not just credibility. It's not just, I believe one person over the other. It's, I believe this person's story because the evidence corroborates their story. The evidence backs it up. This is an evidence-based conclusion, and that's clear because that's all articulated and written out in the report. Two people can disagree. We've talked about this before. That's okay, as long as you can back up your finding with evidence. Use policy language in your report. Use accurate language. Use accurate verbs. No one should be able to claim that you were biased by reading your report. And believe me, I have read reports from investigators where the report was so poorly written that even if bias didn't exist, I thought it did after reading it. They very clearly or very poorly communicated that they had made up their mind before they even conducted the investigation. The way they wrote up the witness interviews, the way they wrote their notes, everything showed that they'd already had a conclusion. If you do your report correctly, it should negate any claims of bias because you have referenced evidence. Everything you say is supported and explained by the evidence available to you from the investigation. So if someone claims you were biased, people should be able to look at your report and say, it doesn't look like it to me. This conclusion is pretty solid. It's backed up by evidence. We're going to have to dig a lot deeper if you want to argue that there was bias here, if you want to find the bias equation.